Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm accompanied by my partner in film, Devin, and today we're here to present our review of A24's The Iron Claw. And before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Film Optix, or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions, and that is Optix with an X. Devin, this is technically our comeback. So happy New Year, technically, as this episode will be dropping in the new year. So this is technically our second episode of 2024 that we're recording on the last day of the year for December 31st, 2023. What's going on? Are you ready for a day of football and men just, going toe to toe, getting that belt, or shall I say, clenching those playoff divisions?
Yes, I am ready for football. I was not prepared for this movie. I'll say that much.
I was not either. And, we kind of decided to do this at the last minute. I've been meaning to check it out. A24 sent me a physical screener of this a few weeks ago. I was not able to make it to our early screening for the Critics Association in town because holidays, it's been kind of crazy altogether. So we not deliberately took like a little bit of a hiatus, because I think our last episode prior to our What If Season 2, which should be out as of right now, our last episode technically of 2023 was like December 19th, and that was Poor Things. So this is kind of us. I guess this is a good way to ring in the new year, with this powerful, powerful movie. Easily one of my favorite films of the year. Just gonna, kind of rip that Band-Aid off right now. But we are going to be covering The Iron Claw, as I mentioned before. But yeah, Devin, are you just ready to dive on in to this, to dissect this interesting film with Zac Efron at the helm, our boy?
He's soaring. He's flying.
There's not a star in heaven that he can't reach. But as we mentioned before, and before we get into our review, without further delay, I should say, we'll be right back after this introduction to our review of The Iron Claw.
Ever since I was a child, people said my family was cursed. Mom tried to protect us with God. Pop tried to protect us with wrestling. He said if we were the toughest, the strongest, nothing could ever hurt us. I believed him. We all did.
And we are back with our The Iron Claw review. This is going to be a roller coaster of a ride for us, but this film is directed by Sean Durkin and written by Sean Durkin as well, and stars our boy Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickinson, and Lily James Pulta. I'm just joking. Her name is just Lily James, but I had to throw that Harry Potter reference in there. But the story is as follows. The true story of the inseparable Von Erich brothers, who made history in the intensely competitive world of professional wrestling in the 1980s. So this is pretty much just a quality of life or a slice of life story about the Von Erich brothers and their days within the wrestling ring in Texas, and them trying to win that heavyweight champion belt for their family. And The Iron Claw, it has a lot of meaning in this film, more than one. And it's a story about brotherhood, family, and just the triumph of the human spirit. And it's just one of those movies we haven't really gotten in such a long time, where it just feels very human. But before I get too much into it with my initial reactions. I'm going to pass it over to Devin so he can give his initial reactions because he saw this in the theater. I did not, but there was a reason for that.
Yeah, that definitely added to it.
Yeah, definitely did. But hey, I watched it all alone, all the same, no interruptions.
Yeah, you mean you had a tissue box at hand.
I had to pause it to go grab one, man. I was like, this is too much. But what are your initial reactions or thoughts on this film?
Yeah, going into this one, I actually did a double feature with this movie and Wonka, which surprisingly is a pretty good double feature because you get this movie first and it kind of destroys you, but then you get the nice, happy, magical, whimsical Wonka afterwards to lift things back up a bit. So that worked out. And it's also kind of funny because Jeremy Allen White is obviously in this one as Carrie Von Erich, and he was kind of like the main fan casting for Wonka. A lot of people think he looks a lot like Gene Wilder, which I do agree with. So it's kind of funny to have that as a double feature, and I do think he would have been a good Wonka, but I think good old Timmy actually did pull it off. Just to throw that out there. But as far as this movie goes, I went in pretty much completely blind. All I knew was that it was an A24 wrestling movie starring Zac Efron. Did not know anything about the actual family. Didn't know it's pretty much a biopic, and did not know that about the actual Von Erich's wrestling family, which is a real legendary family in the wrestling community, prominently in the 80s, I believe. Mm-hmm. So if you were watching wrestling back then, especially in the Texas era, you probably know of this family. But I think if you go into it blind like I did, it enhances the experience even that much more because you just don't know what's happening and what's going to hit you, and it kind of just keeps hitting and things keep happening. It's definitely a roller coaster because this family really is cursed, and it is crazy to see what unfolds to this family. As someone who's not really a wrestling fan, you and I both can agree on that. I think the wrestling in the movie actually is pretty decent. Like, it looks like they're all doing their legit stunts and moves and everything. Like, they're in that ring definitely putting in work. I think it's cool to see that. And everyone got jacked for this movie. Like, Zac Efron he is just like a cloud. Like, he's just so large.
It's crazy to think, like, literally. So on this day, 18 years ago, technically, a lot of film outlets are just like kind of playing with the idea. It's the 18 years ago, Troy Bolton and Gabriella Montez met at the New Year's Eve party in High School Musical. It, like, both of them, especially Zac Efron, like, that was his breakout role. Like, everyone knew Zac Efron as Troy Bolton from High School Musical, and the world has never been the same. And like you said, like, he gets, and we've seen him in other films, when it comes to like The Greatest Showman, of course. I think he was in also like 17 Again, just to name a few, but it's like, he got so jacked for this film.
He got like, I don't know how you got that jacked. I don't know if it was natural or not. I hope it was natural based on some of the things we see in the movie where if you're not careful, some bad things can happen. But I didn't know. Obviously, physically, he transformed himself, but I did not know he had this in him emotionally, this ability as an actor. And it was really cool to see that come out because, especially the last probably half hour or so of this movie, it's just a Zac Efron just like tour de force of emotional acting, and it all really hits so well. It was cool to see him pull that off because I don't think anyone knew he had those capabilities coming from the High School Musical days. And it was funny, you talk about High School Musical where the wedding scenes where the crew is dancing, he still looks like a natural. Like, I've seen people talk about that where he's out there dancing and he looks like he's still got the moves, like he knows what he's doing. And I love the song choices too. That was so cool. I didn't know Beggin' was a Frankie Valli song originally.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
Because I knew there was that like early 2000s version from, I think it was MadCon, whatever that was. And then there's the Maneskin version from like last year or 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I didn't know because I waited till the credits and I looked at the song because I love that song, but I didn't know It's Frankie Valli. It's crazy.
That is crazy to think about. And I think from what I'm understanding, because Zac Efron was also in The Greatest Speed Run Ever. Well, he's done so many just like random roles. He's also in Firestarter, which I did not watch. But
Oh yeah, I heard bad things about that one.
yeah, but I think outside of I think his last big role besides the Iron Claw, to me at least, was probably Extremely Wicked and Shockingly Vile, the Ted Bundy. I think it was a show, or yeah, I think it was a show. No, it was just a movie. But yeah, he was he was great in that. But it's crazy that we're able to follow a lot of these actors when it comes to their careers. But just back to the actual, the meaning of this movie. Like Devin said, we're not wrestling fans, but it's like, my God, I'm sorry. We can talk about the transformation all day, but when it comes to the Iron Claw itself, it is a wrestling move that their father created, and
it really was like kind of a badass move too when you see it in action. Like you put that meaty hand up there, and you basically just force their face into submission, which is just kind of badass.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where you have you're introduced to this family. It's a family of wrestlers. The father had like promising future with football that didn't really work out, so he turned to wrestling. And
it's the classic: the dad's dreams didn't work out, so he's kind of forcing his dreams onto his sons.
Yeah, but also it's you see it throughout the movie. He talks about he's like, I have I have my favorite children, but those rankings can always change. But the Iron Claw, the name of the movie, not only is it like a grip, like a wrestling move, but it shows that this Iron Claw was really, the father trying to not necessarily hold the family together, but putting this pressure on. They had 5 kids collectively, and things happen throughout the film where they're all pressured in one way or another into, going into this world of wrestling. But this iron grip.
I was looking at the trivia, and it's kind of a bit of a debate amongst people who have watched this movie. They actually had 6 kids, and one of them was cut from the movie due to time, it seems like. And he had the same fate that Carrie Von Erich did, the Jeremy Allen White character. So
right, okay,
it's just another part of the curse. It's just crazy to think about. I can understand why they would possibly take that out, because it is just a lot, and for them to have another one to add in. I mean, I understand both sides, because you want to tell his story too. He's a brother, just like the rest of them. But the movie's 2 hours and 15 minutes. To add another one of just those crazy, painful moments.
It's like at least another 15 minutes, maybe even like 30, depending. It would have been a very long movie. But wow, I did not know that they had 6.
I think they should have at least mentioned. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to make that decision.
It's hard to do justice when it comes to that as well, because it's like, you want to tell the story of, like you said, it is a biopic, a drama, sports drama. And it, some biopics are hit or miss, but I think this is definitely one of the best ones we've had in a very long time. But yeah, it's hard, because it's like, how do you do justice? How do you give respect to the family while also trying to create a movie that isn't overbearingly long for people to understand or, get the gist of the story? But I do agree. If they had 6 children, they should have at least mentioned.
Because they mentioned the one that died as a young boy. They mentioned him a few times throughout, and they didn't
Junior.
They didn't do any flashbacks or anything. Like, they didn't have to do that. They just kind of mentioned it, and that worked. But there was a 6th one that is similar age to the others, and was actually in wrestling as well.
And there's the quote from Kevin Von Erich, which is played by Zac Efron. He says, ever since I was a child, people said that my family was cursed. Mom tried to protect us with God, and Dad tried to protect us with wrestling. He said if we were the toughest, the strongest, nothing could ever hurt us. And he says, I believed him. We all did. And I think that is a great way to start the film. I mean, it starts a little bit different, but that's like one of the dialogue that kind of sets the tone for the film.
That sets the story.
Yeah, because I mean, you had the dad who was saying, trying to protect them with the wrestling, especially after everything that happened, like with their oldest brother, and then the mother trying to protect them with God, but. You really see the familial bonds, not between the parents and the children, but between the children themselves. Zac Efron's character, when he meets Lily James' character, saying that, I'll do anything with my brothers. Like it could be literally anything. Like he didn't even say like, oh yeah, like this is our favorite thing to do together. And you see that throughout the film, how they look out for each other, because their parents were just like, hey, this is between you and your brothers. Anytime there was like an altercation, some type of issue where either Kevin or one of the other brothers would speak up and say, hey, mom, dad, like, I think you should stop putting so much pressure on so-and-so. And then the parents were so dismissive, saying, oh, like, that's between you and your brothers. So it's like, not saying that their parents, this is a biopic, so we don't know the full story, but the way that the film paints it paints the parents being very dismissive. But
I like that it didn't paint them as the complete villains. Like it easily could have been. It could have been like, oh, this is the reason all this happened because of these parents. Obviously, it didn't paint them in a great light because they were dismissive and they did push their sons way too hard and they weren't there to support them, but they didn't completely villainize them. Yeah,
and that's what I appreciate because, parents are parents. Parents have some of the best qualities. They have their best qualities, and then they have their qualities that aren't so great. But I feel like that's pretty much with anyone's parents, depending on the degree of those qualities. Because you could tell that their parents did care about them. They did care about their well-being. And especially with the mother trying to just, protect them through religion, protect them through God. That was her outlet of watching over her children. But even when the parents were interacting with each other, they didn't hate each other. The dad wasn't abusive physically to his mom, but they had their own their own relationship, their own connection. But it really is just about the brothers. But not saying that they were completely dismissive, but I believe it was the brother who was like really into music. He was like, yeah, he's like, we have a gig playing at this college, and his mom's like, no, like you can't go, like that's just out of the question, kind of thing. But you see Kevin and the rest of his brothers really just supporting each other. It's not like, oh, well, mom said this. So, it's not like they were necessarily fighting for their parents' attention, like almost in a way, more so through their father, but not really, because they were smart enough to understand when their father was wrong and them trying to address certain issues. And especially with having Jeremy Allen White's character, just literally pretty much just any of the brothers, where they're in some type of or I guess you could say disarray, and then Kevin more so saying, hey, so and so just isn't acting like themselves. Like you need to check on David, you need to check on Carrie, you need to check on or Mike Von Erich as well. So it's like the brothers really looked out for each other. I love the spirit of that. And it showed how much they cared for each other, and just wrestling was something that they seemed to enjoy, but it did take a toll on the family because of the father. So it seemed that the brothers did enjoy it to a point, but they definitely had other interests outside of wrestling of what they wanted to do. But yeah, it's basically the father living vicariously through his five sons or four sons during the beginning of the movie. So it's a lot to think about. But I love the just the interactions within this film. It just felt like a human story. Like, it's a biopic, I get it, but it didn't. There wasn't like, oh, they were trying to win like the heavyweight champion belts throughout the film. It wasn't like, oh, well, they won it.
I do think it was funny that Jeremy Allen White was heavyweight. Like, that man is.
I know.
That man is 5'5". Like, I don't know if he's hitting heavyweight.
He's got the move called Yes Chef or
Yes,
Cousin.
Chef. I would have loved the cousin appearance. Add him to the family.
Oh, yes. He could have been like a trainer or something. Just throw him in there. That's all I need. But I mean, everyone gave like the best performances. Some of the best performances I've seen this year, of course, Zac Efron being the main character at the forefront. Everyone's talking about him. And I really hope he gets an Oscar nomination. There's a big political thing when it comes to all that with other awards, but he deserves it, man. Like Zac Efron has shown, even just in The Greatest Showman, but like this film really shows like you said, his acting chops and what he's really capable of. I know he's been in a lot of, silly movies here and there, but he seems like a great guy. And I just wish nothing for the best for like, honestly, this entire cast and crew, because it was great. Like even the wrestling moments, like you said, they felt like actual wrestling moments. They didn't really seem like it just felt like you were watching wrestling.
Yeah, I imagine all the actors were doing their own stunts. Like, it looked like they were actually doing the wrestling moves.
Of course, I would hope so. Zac Efron getting that jacked and like, yo, you can't do your own stunts. It's like, no. I'm going to show off these muscles.
It was funny that he was always barefoot. Like, he was the barefoot one in the ring. I noticed that everyone else had the boots on. It must have been a character signature.
Yeah, or something that the actual Kevin and Erich did. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about like the story, and I mean the production design was phenomenal. The way that they were able to
I love the soundtrack, like the production design. They had some great needle drops. They had a nice Rush Tom Sawyer in there. That one hit. Dude,
the writing, I think it was like, I mean, obviously, the performance comes with the writing, but the writing is really what just hit it home.
Yeah, before we started recording, we mentioned our two favorite lines and how hard they hit, and just it's gonna stick with you. I don't want to spoil anything because I want everyone to go into this blind as much as they can, and I think it's a movie that benefits from that. So I definitely say go into this one blind. And just from my theater experience, I was sitting to the right of me was, I would say, probably a 70-year-old man, had a cane and everything. And then to the left of me was probably around a 60-year-old man. And then throughout the movie, like in the second half, there was a lot of sniffling going on from our entire row. And it was not from sickness. It was it was grown men just going through it because this movie hits you like a train.
Yeah, and that's another thing within the film where, it's about how men are dealing with their emotions. Because like throughout the film, they say, the father, Fritz, he's always saying, like, don't cry, like men don't cry. But I think that was important to show, especially from Zac Efron's character, Kevin. Like with most A24 films, they kind of just end. And this one felt like it had a finality, but it was a blend of a finality and life just goes on.
Yeah, this one had a concrete ending.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where, life just goes on, and, it is what it is. You go through, the trials and tribulations, and you, just reflecting on everything that happens in this film. It's like, of course, we're not going to spoil it. It's just, gosh, it's so good. Like I need to buy this like ASAP. Like I want to watch it again. Like this is easily one of my favorite A24 movies like ever. And they've been doing such a great job recently with a lot of their films. They're really becoming like their own household name. And, you know, them still being an indie studio is, you know, a testament of itself. But the fact that they're able to pump out films like this, because we also had another semi-biopic this year, Priscilla. I believe that was also A24. That movie kind of just ends, but this is like, this was it. This was it.
It's just one of those movies that it's going to stick with you.
Yeah. I think, and towards the end of this year, like for 2023, we have like The Holdovers, Godzilla -1, The Iron Claw, The Color Purple.
I'm actually curious to see how this one's going to be perceived for the Oscars because it came out so late. I don't know if it's going to have enough traction to get some love that it deserves.
So I think it will, only because when Dune Part 1 came out, it came out not in December, but it was like, I think November, October. And I saw a lot of critics on Twitter and just Rotten Tomatoes, like whoever on the internet saying, oh, you know, well, Dune's not going to get that much of a recognition because it came out so late in the award season, because we're already in award season. But they walked away with 6 Oscar nominations.
I just think this one's more extreme because it's literally the end of the year, like the very end.
Yeah, but A24, I feel like they know what they're doing, especially after what happened with Everything Everywhere All at Once last year, winning Best Picture. And that came out in March, and that's super early. Or no, when did, gosh, I'm getting my years mixed up. But
it was one of the first 3 months, January, February, and March.
Right. So it's like they were able to just, I mean, the word of mouth for that film alone carried it. And I was like, this is great. I can't remember if Past Lives is A24 or not. I don't think so. I could be wrong.
I'll say that one's Neon.
I think that is Neon. Yeah. You're right.
I still have to watch that one. That's one of the last ones on my list for the year.
It's a great movie. It's a perfect like allegory for like the right love at the wrong time.
Okay, no, that one's A24 as well.
Oh, is it really? Okay, I thought it was Neon.
I looked it up.
Okay, so Past Lives is another great one as well. Man, they're killing it. They are easily my favorite like indie studio working today. Surprised that, you know, Poor Things wasn't underneath A24, because that definitely had a lot of A24 vibes. But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, The Iron Claw, like a
Bring your tissues.
Bring your tissues, everyone. Seriously, if you don't like wrestling, you're gonna love this movie, because we don't like wrestling and we love this movie. And it's like, wow. I didn't even watch the trailer before watching it. Like, I've seen clips, you know, like little promotions of it from time to time.
Yeah, I think we saw it before Thanksgiving. They showed it.
Mm-hmm. But outside of that, like, I just did not know too much about it. And I was like, oh, Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, I'm there. Like 100%. But let's get into our final thoughts and ratings for this film. Devin, I'll pass it back over to you. What are your final thoughts and ratings? Also, before we even do that, I just want to give a quick shout out to Lily James, because she did a fantastic job.
Yeah, she really held it down.
Mm-hmm. She really, and I feel like she had a good amount of screen time for, you know, she was playing, you know, the wife of Zac Efron's character, but she did a great job as well. But Devin, let's get into our final thoughts and ratings. What are your final thoughts and ratings for The Iron Claw?
Yeah, final thoughts. Did not expect this movie to do what it did, and that was kind of destroy me emotionally, at least for a couple hours there in the theater. It really is just an emotional roller coaster where it's a journey through family and brotherhood and all the trials and tribulations that can come with that, especially if you're a cursed family like this, apparently. I think I've heard of the Von Erichs, but having not known any of their story, it really just blows you away whenever you watch everything unfold here. I think the only real minor complaint I have is the Ric Flair appearance. Like, even as a non-wrestling fan, everyone knows Ric Flair and everyone knows what he's about. I just think his portrayal was a bit off compared to the real Ric Flair, which is all about flair, obviously, and being over the top. I don't think that was nailed very well, but other than that, definitely up there. Definitely kind of catapults high on the list of top movies of the year. At the very end, it did a good job of leaving that lasting mark and impact. I'd say as a score, I'd probably go with like a 96. Like, there really is not much. I mean, there's just not much to dislike about this one, especially going in blind, not being a wrestling fan. Like, imagine if you're a wrestling fan or if you're from Texas, this might hit even harder for you. Like, it deals with those Texas core family values, I imagine, so well, where it just kind of, I just imagine it hits even harder.
And the fact that, we saw this both yesterday and, I'm still thinking about it. And I'm like, man, I want to tell everyone to go watch this movie because it is just that good of a film. I think that it is worth people's time to watch and just to ponder. And it's, the movie's about, brotherhood, sisterhood, just familial bonds. Collectively is just, it's all through this movie. And man, oh man, it's one wild ride. And you said you gave this a 96. I gotta give it a 98 out of 100. Like, there's always room for error. I gotta watch it again, but like, I didn't really, like I said, like, the Ric Flair thing, that's a fair point, but like, just giving it room for like minor error, but like, my God, like I give it like a 98 out of 100. Like, it's so good. It's so good. I want to watch it again, and I want to show everybody this movie all together. So you gave it a 96. I'm giving a 98. So that would be like a 96.5 would be our median score, the official podcast score for this episode altogether. Definitely. Everyone needs to watch this movie. Everyone needs to buy this movie, whether it's physical media, digital. Like, God, as Zac Efron for if he won, if he was nominated and he won for like best like lead actor, I wouldn't be mad. Like, I would be like, yep, that's what I want. That's what I would love to see happen. But award season, it's its own beast. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But with all that said, that does conclude today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard on today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform of choice, and make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. And don't forget to share an episode of our podcast with a fellow movie lover in need, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Spread the love for the Film Optix podcast. And now, really quick, we're going to let you know what you can listen to as of right now on the podcast. You can listen to our What If Season 2 review, which we just recorded a few days ago, as well as our Poor Things review and our The Boy and the Heron review, as well as our The Holdovers review, a new Christmas classic favorite of Devin and I's. I believe it's actually on Blu-ray right now, Devin, so we gotta get on that one very, very quickly.
I think it's on Peacock now as well.
Ooh, so it's going everywhere. But as we mentioned before, since it's been a bit of a lull for us because we, released our Poor Things review like December 19th prior to, but this is technically our second review of 2024. So we hope everyone had a fantastic New Year's, a safe New Year's as well. And we got a few things we're going to be covering within 2024. We got Echo. Hopefully we'll be able to cover Night Swim, that movie, Mean Girls, just a few things that we're, toying with the idea. I'm not sure if Devin wants to watch anything but you, but that is a movie that we could cover. But, to stay connected with us on social media. We'll definitely let you know when things are going to be dropping. It's just, we're still kind of in the holiday mode as of right now, but hopefully we'll be able to get back on track for 2024. So again, we hope you all had a wonderful New Year's and a wonderful holiday. And with all that said, thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard on the show, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and stay connected with us by following us on Twitter for the latest updates. That was Devin, and I'm Christian, signing off. And remember, life is like a movie, so go out there and make it a blockbuster.
Peace.